All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Before Coach Tess and I get started, just a couple items to take care of. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation today, and you can type those in by clicking that Q&A section in the lower portion of your control panel. We will be posting a recording of the webinar on our blog. The link for that will be shown at the end. And if you would like a PDF copy of the presentation, there will be a link to download that on that same post as the recording. If your question does not get answered today, or if you think of any more after we're done, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. All right, so what's on the agenda for today? So we aren't quite to the coldest weather this year yet, but we know it's coming, right? That consistently cold weather, the snow, the ice, for most of us anyways, all of that fun stuff. And here's the thing. We know it's coming every year, but every year we hear similar things. It's so hard to get exercise in the winter. It's cold out. I don't know what to do. It's dark outside earlier, so on and so forth, right? I say it myself. Well, this year we have some answers and some tips for you. And if you're listening from a warmer climate, this webinar is for you too. So don't tune out because we do hear it from you too, right? When it's 50 degrees instead of 80 degrees, while it doesn't make us feel too bad for you while we're up here up north, we do know that it still makes it harder for you to have that motivation to want to go outside. So you can use some of the tips we share today as well. So we're going to talk about what you can do inside and outside during those colder months. We're going to talk about why you need to get outside at least a little bit, what those benefits are to your body and mind. And then we're going to talk about how you can get outside to exercise and then still be safe while doing so. So let's start with why you should be utilizing the outdoors in those colder months first. If you're one of those people who say, oh, I'll just hibernate until spring comes and then I'll pick up my exercise then, listen up. These are the benefits of exercising outside in the cold. So maybe this can get you out of your den a little bit and outside at least a couple days per week. First is calorie burn. Your body works harder to regulate its core temperature when it's cold out. So you'll end up burning more calories during that workout. Now, obviously, how much is going to vary depending on your mass and the actual temperature, but hey, any increase is good, right? An interesting side note with this is something called brown fat. So we've got our normal white fat that stores our calories, but we also have another type of fat called brown fat that we once thought was actually only in babies, but now is being found in small amounts in adults too. So what is brown fat? Well, it's fat that is packed with mitochondria. All right, think back to that 8th grade science. What was mitochondria again? Yes, that little kidney bean shaped thing, the powerhouse of the cell. It's the place where energy production happens. So this brown fat that is full of mitochondria burns energy and produces heat. Scientists have found that people who have lower BMIs or body mass indexes have more brown fat. So scientists are looking into the possibility of using this knowledge of brown fat to help fight obesity. All right, so what does that have to do with exercising in the cold? Well, when you exercise and spend time in the cold, your brown fat is more active, and it could even cause you to grow new brown fat cells. That's our connection. So while it's still really new and kind of a mystery because it's hard to find that brown fat, scientists say everyone has at least some, and they do believe that we can grow it in anybody. So until we figure out a little more, working out in colder weather can actually help you naturally build this brown fat to burn more calories. Okay, next benefit of exercising in the cold is heart health. When you're in the cold, your heart has to work harder to distribute blood to the rest of your body. Similar to increasing your speed when walking or running or upping the incline on a treadmill, when you exercise in the cold, you stress that heart muscle just a little bit more. And just like any other muscle in your body, when you work it, it has to adapt and it will get stronger. So this harder work can make your heart muscle even stronger than it was doing regular workouts when you're in the cold. One big note, though, that I need you to pay attention to, if you have any heart issues currently, exercising in the cold can be a risk. So just please chat with your doctor if you have history of heart issues or if you have any concerns with this before jumping out and doing a run in the cold. All right, next benefit to exercising outdoors, you will improve your winter hydration. Now, if you've listened to some of our other webinars, you know how important hydration is to almost every function in our bodies. So increasing hydration is extremely helpful. So think about it. Most of us drink way more water in the hot months typically, right? Why? Because you feel that sweat on your skin. It signals you to take a drink. We also feel thirsty because our core temperature heats up more quickly. What happens in the winter, though, is that your sweat evaporates more quickly. So you don't necessarily feel that loss of water or get that signal, but it's still happening. So exercising in the winter, what it does, it can increase that core temperature more often than normal, signaling you, giving you a different signal to drink more. The other positive is that you're simply continuing those summer exercise habits, which usually include drinking water before, during, or after your workout, right? So grabbing your water bottle is or should be second nature when you're going to work out, and it shouldn't matter the time of the year. The next benefit I've got is tolerance. The more you get out in the colder weather, the more your body will acclimate and you won't feel as cold. So in September or October, where we are now, whenever we get to that first cooler day, when we've just had 3 months of 70, 80, 90 plus degree weather, a day that's 50 degrees feels kind of freezing, right? We're all bundling up and we feel so cold. But then in April, that first 50-degree sunny day, and I know at least some of us up in the Midwest, we're running around in shorts already. Yes, we actually do that. So what happened between September and April, though? Our bodies got used to the cold. We acclimated to our surroundings. So you may have to tough it out for a couple of weeks here as it gets colder, but your body will get used to the cold and you'll get more and more comfortable being outside, not only when exercising, but just walking to your car or going to different events and just this day-to-day things as well. All right, a few more benefits, and we'll move on to some ideas, get the good stuff going. Similar to utilizing our consistency with workouts to stay hydrated, when you work out in the winter, it's going to take you a little longer to get those muscles warmed up, and it's going to take you a little bit longer to cool down depending on what you're doing. So what happens is you realize how important that aspect of your exercise is. So taking the time to warm up and cool down is crucial no matter what time of year it is, but really taking your time to make sure those muscles are loose and ready to go when it's colder out can build habits and build a great routine that you can use throughout the year. All right, next benefit, vitamin D. If you're not familiar with vitamin D, it is a wonderful thing that is produced in our skin as a result of exposure to the sun's rays. Vitamin D is vital in regulating the absorption of calcium, keeping the immune system functioning normally, and normal growth of bones and teeth. Just as important is the research that shows vitamin D may play an important role in regulating mood and warding off depression. So you've probably heard of the winter blues or seasonal affective disorder, right? So just when we get kind of depressed in those winter months, a lack of vitamin D can be a big part of those problems because most of us are exposed to the sun regularly in the summer months, right? But we don't get nearly as much in the winter, partly because the sun isn't as prevalent in the winter. The days are shorter, but mainly because we just don't go outside as much. We're hiding from that cold, right? So getting outside consistently when the sun is shining in the winter can be extremely helpful, get you that needed dose of vitamin D to help on that mental, that brain health side. One note on this too, and I'm going to say it again, don't forget your sunscreen. Even though it's cold out, you can absolutely still get a sunburn if you're outside. So make sure you're putting it on your exposed skin before heading out. And so to keep with this note on the mental health, my last benefit is with your mood and energy. So I just touched on one way with the vitamin D and just getting outside, but another way cold boosts that energy is simply because it's cold. When we don't have that humidity and heat that can kind of wear us down in the summer, the fresh air stimulates our senses. It increases our endorphins, which are feel-good hormones. And because your body is typically working harder in the winter exercise, right? We talked about that. Your production of endorphins actually increases even more. So all good stuff here and reasons why you should try to get outside as much as you can. I hope this got you motivated a little bit. Now let's get to the good stuff. Coach Tess is here. She's going to give us some great ideas of some ways to keep moving during these winter months. Tess, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Shelby. So now that we know the benefits and why we should be exercising outside, we have to think about what we can be doing during those brutal winter months. You may think, there is no way I can stick to my regular routine. It's too brutal being out there. Well, like Shelby was saying, there are so many benefits with working out outside, even during those months. So keep it simple. Stick to those regular routines and try not to overcomplicate exercise. The best way to stay active and committed to healthy habits is to not overthink about the barriers and present themselves, and just keep up the great habits that you formed during those beautiful summer months. To the individuals with more ideal weather conditions, don't turn an ear away thinking this isn't for you. Ideally, continuing your regular routine shouldn't create too much of an issue, but it's always great to try something new, find other motivators, or even think about joining us up here in the Arctic to try some winter activities. Going back to what I was saying, keeping it simple. Try maintaining those routines by continuing to stick to your regular walking routine if you have one, or start walking when you have lulls in your day. Bundle up, bring the family or friends, and start trekking. If you like biking in the winter months, try swapping those road tires for some sturdy fat tires. I know here in Wisconsin, it's the cool thing to do when the weather changes. Not into the regimented routine of walking or biking, don't fret, dial it back to thinking about where you can add extra movement. It can be as easy as parking further from the grocery store, outlet malls, or the office. And by now, I hope all of you choose the stairs over the elevator, but I know that it can be quite tempting when you see your cubicle mate hitting the up button. Well, tell Sharon you'll meet her upstairs and tackle the staircase if one is available. So after touching on sticking to regular routines and trying to maintain those healthy habits you've already instilled, it's good to think about other options that winter might present. That being said, the best part about winter is the ability to be a kid again. It opens up a lot of opportunities for exercise through fun and playful activities. Doing things with the family makes space for everyone to be active, especially activities like building a snowman, making an igloo, or even engaging in a friendly snowball fight is a great way to burn off some extra calories and reduce stress. Sometimes the winter months can make us plummet into hibernation, but going outside is still a necessity and should be a priority, which means shoveling is usually a pretty frequent task, especially here in the Midwest. On those chilly Saturday mornings where staying in your PJs seems like the best possible option, think about switching habits to do a good deed. You can recruit the family and tackle shoveling not only your driveway, but your neighbors. And I'm pretty sure good deeds burn extra calories too. With these activities, you are likely not having to go far in terms of transportation. So just bundle up and go outside. Although I wish we had a secret new list of things you can be doing, you have probably already heard all of these options before. But maybe there are some options you haven't done in a while or things you've always wanted to try. This is your opportunity to get outside your comfort zone and engage in some outdoor activities. Tackling the snow doesn't always have to look like a chore like shoveling. It can be fun and sporty too. Snowshoeing is one heck of a workout. Not only is it a great unconventional way to get your heart pumping, but it can also burn up to 1,000 calories per hour. An hour. That's equivalent to nearly 7 12-ounce sodas. Not to mention, it's a great way to get some low impact muscle building in. Sledding, although not as intense of a workout, can be a great family activity, or to just feel the adrenaline and stress relief during that downhill ride. The uphill climb will 100% get those legs screaming for a rest, which luckily comes at that top. Ice skating is another sport that only pops up during those frigid months, unless you're somewhere like Alaska. Take advantage of the opportunity to master the art of twirling and falling. downhill downhill skiing and cross-country skiing. If you have a downhill course around you, take advantage of it. Purchasing a season pass is a great option to make your money's worth and hold you accountable to going a couple times during those snowy months. For cross-country skiing, a lot of local trails make it winter friendly for that skiing season. So if you are going to miss those fall hikes, you might still be able to utilize those trails and try this sport. And dependent on your size, you can burn 400 to 500 calories per hour. Not going to lie, it's a phenomenal workout that will have you looking for a warm and hearty meal afterwards. All of these options are great ways to spend times with friends, get outside your comfort zone, and get that sunlight exposure that we so desperately crave in the dark abyss of winter. Now you may be thinking, Tess, these are all great suggestions, but I don't own any equipment to do any of these activities. Well, that's okay. There are always places you can rent equipment from. Most ski resorts offer rentals, as well as local recreation outlets like REI has rental equipment you can use. Do your research, make some calls, and figure out how you can make some of these options a reality. Now, even as health coaches in the Midwest, we know that sometimes it's just too dang brutal to face the cold and bundle up. So for those days in the negative degrees and where it's not realistic to go outside, it's good to have some backup indoor options too. That being said, this can definitely be a struggle. Some individuals might say, I'm so much more active in the summer. I love running outdoors or biking on the trails. And it can seem discouraging when those options are limited. The biggest trick to finding something indoor is to look for something fun, interesting, or even practical. It doesn't have to look like re-racking your weights at the gym or walking on a treadmill for an hour. It can be as simple as adding in more housework, making vacuuming or sweeping a huge priority, a double win if you ask me, clean house and extra steps, sign me up. If you're looking to get out of the house, but not necessarily into the gym, think about going to the local mall and window shopping, or even shopping. A big tip, Lowe's and Home Depot both allow dogs. So skip the cold dog park and think about getting both you and your furry friends some added movement. Now, if you're more interested in getting some good exercise routine in, there are so many good resources out there. COVID opened up a lot of opportunities for home workouts, maybe the only good thing that has come from it. There are thousands of resources online to browse, from YouTube to Pinterest to on demand. You have access to moderate to vigorous exercise by just a click of a button. Winter is also a great opportunity to try some new indoor activities too. By browsing around your neighborhood, you can look into trying classes at the rec center, or if you're really adventurous, look into the climbing gyms around the area too. Rock climbing is a great way to test your mental strength and having fun feeling like a kid again. If you're thinking rock climbing is a bit far-fetched, you can try things like barre, which is a great option for low impact strength training. There are tons of studios in most metropolitan areas, as well as online options. Now, I can go on and on about the endless list of indoor options, but truthfully, it just takes research. Finding something that makes your mind go, that actually sounds, dare I say, fun? Making exercise an outlet for mental and physical space will not only improve your health, but give you fun and exciting hobbies for the winter months. Not sure how you all are feeling, but I sure feel inspired to get moving. We will pass it back to Shelby for some safety tips.
Thank you so much, Tess. And I just saw in the chat that we do have at least one Canadian listener today. So you know how it is in the cold. So you probably don't feel quite as bad for us down south. We're down south too. So thank you for joining, and thank you for dealing with even more cold up there. So hopefully you're still getting some tips today. All right, so we are going to finish up and talk about some safety. Before you even step outside, it is important to look at those conditions to make sure it's not one of those days where it is inadvisable to go outdoors, or if you need to maybe cut your workout a little bit short due to the cold. Now, the temperature isn't the only factor you need to look at. Wind chill is going to be just as important, as when we've got that wind, it can penetrate our clothes and it can take away that thin layer of warm air that our body creates on its own. At wind chill levels below 18 degrees Fahrenheit, frostbite can occur on exposed skin in 30 minutes or less. It's also important, just I'm going to do a quick chat on the signs of frostbite and hypothermia if you are outside. Frostbite is going to signal you with numbness or a stinging sensation in those areas that are exposed. Now, if that numbness does not go away once you've warmed up, once you've gotten out, make sure you go check it out with the doctor. Hypothermia, obviously much more serious, is going to include shivering, slurred speech, loss of coordination, fatigue, so tiredness. If this starts to occur, if you're outside, you need to get emergency help immediately. Other things to think about are precipitation. If it's sprinkling or if it's a heavy, sticky, wet snow, that can stick to you and cool you down even faster in those conditions. So really just make a common sense decision when it comes to the temperature and whether or not it's safe. You always have your backup options. The test just helped you out with too, right? Next tip is dressing in layers. So when you start off exercising, your body's not warmed up yet. So you need some extra warmth until those muscles start burning energy and warming you up from the inside. The recommendation for layering is listed here. The inside layer should be something that wicks away the moisture and sweat from your body, which is meant to cool us down, right? But we don't need that in the winter. We need to keep that heat in. So clothes made with polypropylene or similar fabrics are ideal for that. Try to avoid cotton next to your skin because that just holds wetness in and it'll hold it right next to your skin, which will cool you off. It won't get rid of that moisture. The next layer is our insulating layer, something like wool or fleece. The last, adding a waterproof but breathable layer like a jacket. You may have to play with your layers because some people do need more insulation. Some people need a little less depending on your mass, your lean mass, your size. Legs are a little bit different too. They may not need as much layering since our core is typically what needs that protection the most. But we also still don't want to leave our legs exposed too much because, again, we still have that frostbite, those types of things when it gets really, really low. So just make sure you've got at least one layer of protection on those legs as well. Protecting your head, your hands, your feet, and your ears is also really important. When our body's cold, it redirects our blood flow to that midsection, to our core, to our vital organs, which leaves our extremities vulnerable. So similar to the first layer of our outer clothes, the recommendation is to wear a thin glove, ideally made of that wicking material, underneath a thicker glove or a mitten. Some experts say to think about having a slightly larger size of shoe or boot for winter so that you can put on thicker socks or multiple layers. We lose a lot of heat from our head as well. So a hat is ideal, or at the very least, a headband to cover up your very, very vulnerable ears. Again, frostbite type situation there. If you're one to brave those really cold temperatures, a face mask or a wrap or a scarf around your chin and mouth is highly recommended. And like I mentioned once already, do not forget that sunscreen. You can still get sunburn if you're out there. Also, you can damage your eyes with the bright sun if it's reflecting off the snow. So make sure you've got sunglasses as well if it's a sunny day. Another tip I mentioned already, but that is worth noting again, is always make sure you're staying hydrated. Like I said, you don't notice being thirsty as much in the winter because you don't get those same signals. So just be sure you're still drinking those fluids and it will keep you safe and not at risk for dehydration because, again, you just may not notice it as much until it might be too late. And we know we have less sunlight to work with in those shorter days, right? But you can still exercise outside if you want to. You just have to be a little bit more careful. So this may apply more to you that are in those warmer areas. But again, we know that the sunlight still becomes a little less abundant in these coming months. So just be sure you're taking the precautions so that vehicles and other people can see you. And also just be aware of how quickly the temperature drops when the sun goes down. You may not think you need those warmer clothes, or you may think you want to go for a long run and then you get out there and all of a sudden the temperature drops really quickly. So you need to be mindful of that with your clothing. So with the darkness specifically though, reflective clothing and shoes, very easy to find. Most tennis shoes are already built with some reflective gear on it, but find reflective jacket and pants and things like that. Make sure you're adding those things to your wardrobe. Headlights and taillights on your bikes. It should be mandatory all the time, makes it much safer. You can wear a headlamp on if you're running as well. That will make you more visible to everyone when you're walking, or even this is, doable for those like the cross country skiing and that type of thing, whatever activity you may be doing when it gets a little bit dark out. Big thing today though is that we just don't want you to let the weather dictate your workouts, right? There's a quote out there. I'm not sure where it originated, but it says there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes, right? So embrace our changing seasons and get out there, enjoy the day, no matter what it throws at you. All right, we're going to open it up for questions here in just a minute, but I just want to go over our upcoming webinars. Next month, we're going to talk about diabetes, fact or fiction. So it's not just for folks that have diabetes, because you should be working with your doctor and learning all that. This is just kind of some tips and tricks and misconceptions that come with what we can do to hopefully prevent or learn to live with diabetes, or just working with our blood sugar in general. And then finding comfort without food. We know the holidays can be a difficult time. So we're going to talk about some different options for stress management and emotional well-being that can help not turn to food in those situations. And then if you have lifestyle rewards and you have to answer questions, these are the questions for you. Should be pretty simple, hopefully. I don't try to make them too hard, but you can submit these questions if you do have to do that for your points. If you don't have time to jot them down, I'm going to switch slides there in just a second. We will have that PDF on the blog post, like I said. So if you don't catch them now, if you need those, they will be on the blog post here by the end of today or tomorrow is typically when they get it up for us. And then, of course, our contact information, like I mentioned at the beginning. If you have any questions that pop up, you have our contact information at the bottom here. You can give us a call and set up a time with a coach. You can email our coaching inbox. And then we're on all of the social media and we share tips and information. And then, of course, the blog. This is where you're going to find the recording to this webinar, watch any of our past webinars, register for upcoming webinars. And again, there's more tips and articles and stuff on that blog as well. So with that, we're actually on a good amount of time here. So we've got some time for questions. So let me open it up